one of the key things that countries need to do in order to improve their civil registration and vital statistics system is to ensure that no one is left behind in accessing civil registration. I work for UNHCR, which is the UN agency responsible for the protection of refugees, resolving statelessness, but also in some circumstances helping internally displaced persons. These populations often find it difficult to access civil registration. Refugees are sometimes living in camps where there are no civil registration facilities. IDPs often are displaced and they can't get health services when their children are born, so they can't get birth notifications, which are vital for getting birth certificates. Sometimes states have laws and policies which are based in the past, where non-nationals can't have their births, marriages or deaths registered within the civil registration system. So these blocks are key challenges to try to ensure that access to civil registration is open to all. So two really interesting examples of where states in Southeast Asia have managed to address these sorts of challenges can be seen in the Philippines and in Thailand. In the Philippines, a couple of years ago, it was rocked by a massive typhoon which devastated the country, known as Haiyan globally, but Yolanda in the Philippines. And that destroyed many civil registries in the area affected by this hurricane, but it also displaced many thousands of people, killed many, unfortunately, as well. Some of the displaced lost their identity documents, their birth certificates in the Philippines. And that meant they had challenges accessing humanitarian relief and other entitlements. So one of the things that UNHCR did with an NGO partner called Ideals, and of course the government of the Philippines, was to work to rebuild the civil registries, to rebuild the capacity of civil registrars, and to do outreach with the affected populations to identify where the gaps were and provide them with assistance in filling out the forms to get the documentation back that they'd lost. There was also follow-on legal advice given by paralegals to help them, once they got the documentation, made the applications to access humanitarian relief and social entitlements. And one of the great things about that project is that UNHCR was able to hand it over to UNICEF after the emergency phase had ended, and it was expanded out to help populations who hadn't been displaced but had never had been included in the civil registry before. And so it's a great example of where humanitarian relief can end up building back better. The second example is in Thailand in 2008. The Thais took a decision to amend their civil registration law to bring it in line with international standards in the Convention on the Rights of the Child. That meant that non-nationals could be included within the civil registration system for the first time. And what was great about that reform, one of the many things that was great about that reform, that it was forward-looking, it was prospective and retrospective. So not only could refugees and stateless people be able to have their births registered in the system now, but those who hadn't been registered before could also make applications to be included. And we've seen a really impressive step change in the level of civil registration of non-nationals in Thailand as a result.